together and remember and be reminded of the fact of the light that we carry and our capacity to make a difference in this world. We are generous. We are compassionate. We are loving. We are courageous. And we are self-centered and afraid and mean-spirited and procrastinating. But I'll talk about that tomorrow sometime. We're all these things because we are light and shadow. It's not about just being our best self all the time. It's about understanding that we are both and that we can be at peace with that. That we can honor the fact that we are both and choose. Because the fact that we do have both within us gives us a very special opportunity. It gives us a very special gift. It gives us the gift of choice. If we were all programmed to just be nice all the time, well, I mean, you know, it would probably be a very quiet world. It would be a very courteous world, but would it be real? Would we have the opportunity to grow? Is it because we have the ability to have that shadow aspect be demonstrated through us that we choose to be nice? Or is it in spite of it? None of us are there all the time. You know, someone once said, you know, it's okay to go there, just don't pitch a tent. And we're all going to go there. We're all going to be reactive. We're all going to say something that as soon as it comes out of our mouth, we wish we had the last 30 seconds back to make another choice. Or maybe that doesn't hit us until somebody looks at us like, really? I cannot believe you just said that. Oh, right, yeah, that was my outside voice. But the thing is, since we're going to do it anyway, we may as well take it as an opportunity to learn, to grow. I remember when I was young and my dad was going out to buy a car. And he decided that since he was making good money and, you know, he swore because my mother knew more ways to cook hamburger than anybody else. And that bothered my dad because he said, no, you know, my family should be eating steak. And so he, you know, he worked really hard and got money together. So every weekend we were eating steak. And it's like, Dad, can we like have some hamburger? You know, we like that. No, no, no. But, you know, then he wanted to get a Mercury Marquis.
Oh, wow.
A boat of a car. I mean, I swear to God, Captain Steubing should have been driving it around. Gas guzzling beyond belief, and it was right at the beginning of the gas crunch. Remember when we were like even and odd days and all of that stuff? My dad, they will pry my marquee out of my cold, dead hands. You know, it's like we could have all fit in the trunk. But when he was going to buy it, and I remember hearing him, you know, and the, you know, salesmen trying to do their spiel, and he would say, well, you can tell me anything you want here at the dealership and here on the lot, but I will figure out this car where the rubber meets the road. And that was the origin of the phrase, was it had to do with when you were buying a car.
Right.
And when the rubber on the tires met the road, that was where you found out what was true about that car or what wasn't. And that's where we bring our truth out. Because that's where the idea of who and what we should be, the aspiration of it meets reality. And it is in that place of reality that, you know, maybe we don't know quite as much as we'd like to think we do, but that's okay. We're not supposed to know everything. We're not supposed to have it all together. We're not supposed to not make mistakes, because it's in that place where the rubber meets the road that we want to. It's there that we realize, wow, I still have some work to do. For me. And, you know, when I talk to people And, you know, they'll start like, you know, just going off about somebody or something. And I remember once I was in a phone conversation with a friend of mine, and I was just venting. Now, hey, venting is always okay. I firmly believe that everybody should schedule like a 1-hour pity party for themselves, like once a week. You don't have to be reasonable, you don't have to be spiritual, you don't have to, you know, be conscious. Just gripe. Speak it and just enjoy it.
Amen.
And then when that hour's done, it's like, okay, I've gotten it out of my system, see you next week. But, you know, I was in a vent mode about somebody, and, you know, that little voice that kind of comes up and whispers things to you said, get up, go to the mirror, and the rest of this conversation, you say it while you're looking in the mirror. And I thought, why? It's like, just do it. Fine. So, you know, I argue with my voice on occasion. It's like, really, really, really? You know you're going to do it? Yeah, okay. So I did. And I was standing in the mirror, and I had my phone, and I was full of righteous indignation and feeling very justified in what I was saying. And I looked at myself, and I realized that was the face that the world saw when I was feeling that. And I wasn't very impressed with what I saw. And in fact, after a few moments, I started to notice that I began to look like the person I was complaining about. You know, her angry, you know, furrowed brow, and, you know, and when she talked, it was just like, and that was exactly what I would make fun of her, you know, and it's like, yeah, and I'd walk away going, but then I saw it in my face. I saw that I was becoming what irritated me, which meant it lived in me. So as I talked, and I started saying, well, you know, yeah, I can sort of understand, you know, how she could feel this way, and yeah, you know, her family, she does have a really tough family life. And as I started to introduce those pieces of compassion, I saw my face change again. I was becoming me again. And that was a point where my rubber hit the road. And it's like, okay, is that the face that I want to show? Is that who I want to be? Is that who I know in my heart is the best person I can be? Because I know I'm not going to be the best person I can be all the time, but I can try for most of the time. I can try for at least half the time. But when I consider, what am I doing? What am I saying? You know, gossip is making someone who is not part of the solution part of the problem. Although it is fun sometimes. And what does it give? You know, if you want to use it as a part of the venting, if you want to use that in your pity party, go for it. And if you want somebody else involved, find somebody who understands, all right, this is going to be a 20-minute vent. All right. I have one friend who would tell people, it's like, okay, you can complain to me about the same thing 3 times. And after the first time, it's like, okay, got 2 more times. And after the second time, it's like, all right, you've only got 1 more time, so use it wisely. And if you called her up to talk about it, it's like, okay, before we start, do you really want to use your last time now? And she said every single person always says, no, I'm going to save it. I got to save it in case they do something really bad. So the idea that, you know, we're all trying our best. Even the people who we don't think are trying, even the people who we think, you know what, they just don't get it. They don't get it the way I get it. They don't see the world the way I see the world. But maybe their world is one that they got their view changed. You know, I have somebody who I consider very dear to me, who is probably one of the most pessimistic people on the planet. I mean, like, epically pessimistic. And, I mean, you could say it's daylight, and she goes, well, there's probably a meteorite hurtling towards us right now. That's what the glow is. The glow is the incoming meteorite. It's like, wow, really? Really? And I was like, well, at least then it'll be quick. No, I'll probably be just outside where it's quick and I'll suffer the rest of my life. And it's like, okay.
See it to his grandma.
And the thing is, she would catch a lot of crap from a lot of people. It's like, well, you know, you're manifesting negative things and no wonder you're unhappy and all of this other stuff. And so she, you know, when we first met, she's like going da 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 da, you know, doing her thing, and then I'm like, okay. And then, you know, she goes on about something else, and I go, okay. And she stopped and she said, why aren't you telling me that I'm wrong? And I said, why should I tell you you're wrong? Well, I say my life sucks. I said, well, I barely know you. Your life could suck. And she looked at me and she said, really? So I'm not wrong? And I said, are you in your truth? Is this how you honestly feel? Yes. I said, well, I'm sorry that your experiences have led you to believe that, but it's not my job to change that. I can accept you for exactly who you are, and just know that it's okay. I think you're a wonderful person. After that, we became very good friends. And she's not as negative as she used to be. And, you know, she's still kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel is the headlamp on the oncoming train. But at least it's not a meteorite anymore. So that idea that we can create change in someone. It's not about what we tell them that they should believe. It's about what we demonstrate is possible to believe. You know, I don't think that I can tell anybody. I mean, I love being in UCM. I love this church. I love this charter. And I think that there's all kinds of wonderful things in it. But I can't tell people about that. But I can show them how I feel.
Right.
When they see me talk about the church and I smile. And talk about, you know, the unique folks who are a part of it. And they say, wow, maybe I'll check that place out. But if I stood and it's like, well, you know, you should do this, and you should do this, and you should do this. No, that's not going to go. Because people believe what they see more than what they hear. And that's a part of that rubber meeting the road. Do we demonstrate what it is that we believe? You know, if we believe that you should always eat healthy and exercise 7 days a week, you know, if the only exercise we're getting is reaching for the ketchup packet at McDonald's as we're ordering our supersized meal, then there's a disconnect. People hear something from us. I mean, think of the people that you've listened to, whether they be political leaders or whether they be, you know, salesmen or whatever, and you hear them talking and you know that it's like, they don't believe any of this. Yeah, how much validity do you give to the advice of someone who obviously doesn't take it? That determines the value of the advice. It determines the value of the belief. If that person does not believe it, why should I? And for a spiritual person, I'm tremendously skeptical. So the idea that it's like, you know what? If you're saying that this way of being is so wonderful, show it to me. You know, I love to see wonderful things. I love to see ways of walking in this world that are amazing. And I've been so blessed to have been able to experience them in all different places in the world. And the people that I see, you know, when I'm in a village, in the rainforest, and, you know, just surrounded by people who just spend every day just working with nature to be able to survive. When they say they believe something, they live it. They walk it. There's an authenticity. You know, in Africa, where the light and the shadow are both so intense, there is an authenticity of their beliefs. There is that walking of the talk. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And that is a responsibility. It's a responsibility to be taken seriously. And while we're not going to always get it right, we're supposed to try. You know, if somebody meets you and you say, it's like, well, I'm a very spiritual person. I go to church on Sundays. You know, maybe you say you're a reverend. If they look at you and go, wow, I would have never thought that. you got some work to do.
Yeah.
And it's that thought that I carry with me. I mean, I'm honestly, I piss off lots of people. Really, I do. And it's not because I want to, it's because it's like, well, you know, this is how I present because I have to be me. I have to be authentic. I'm not always right. God knows I'm not always right. But I will go with what I believe. And if somebody says, you know what, you need to take a look at this another way, it's like, okay, I will. You know, let's take a look at it. You know, it's like, you know, the story about the 5 days to enlightenment where, you know, day one, you walk down the street and fall in a hole. Does that, anybody doesn't know that story? You know that one?
No.
Oh, okay. So, for you,
Thank you.
it's like the idea is, yeah, the idea is that, you know, it's like 5 days to enlightenment. Day one, I walk down the street and I fall down a hole. It's a very deep hole, it's a very nasty hole, I'm hating it, I complain, and it takes me almost a whole day in order to figure out how to crawl out. Day two, I walk down the street and I fall in the hole. I just berate myself for falling in the hole. I tell myself how stupid I am for falling in the hole and how somebody really needs to fill in this hole because obviously other people are not taking care of it. So it's not totally my fault that I fell in the hole, that other people are responsible for it. But I sort of remember how I got out, so it only takes me just a few hours to get out. Day three, I walk down the street and I fall in the hole. At that point I realized it's on me. I was not paying attention. But I remembered how to get out of the hole. And so I got out almost immediately. Day four, I walk down the street and I walk around the hole. Day five, I walk down a different street.
I thought you were going to pull it up.
I will tell you that I have spent years in day one over different things in my life that I held on to, things that I felt justified. It's like, no. That hole is there and it's going to stay there because if I don't every once in a while jump down in that hole, I will forget that this person hurt me. And I don't want to forget because if I forget they hurt me, I'm going to let somebody else hurt me. So as long as I've got that hole and as long as I can remember that pain, I will not let anybody else give me that kind of pain again.
Yep.
And so sometimes the hole can be comforting. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. You know, it's better to keep your expectations low. You know, if you think somebody's going to hurt you, walk away first because you know they're going to. So all of those things, all of those stories that we tell ourselves, you know, I told myself those stories for years over different things in my life where it was okay for me to hold a grudge. It was okay for me to resent. It was okay for me to judge this person. But it's not. You know, I had a teacher tell me there are no justified resentments, which I thought was pure crap. He said, of course there are justified resentments. They said, really? What? And I said, well, when somebody has hurt you so bad that you don't want to ever let them hurt you again. You can't just let them back into your life to hurt you again, can you? And I said, no, you don't have to, but why resent them over it? Do you have to resent in order to avoid pain? Do you have to keep opening a wound just to make sure that nobody else wounds you in the same way? Do you avoid letting something heal within you in order to make sure that you don't forget it? And that's a tough one. That is a tough one. You know, it's, you know, if somebody hurts you, and I mean like hurts you, being able to let go of that doesn't mean that what they did was okay. It doesn't mean that you ever have to let that person close. It means that whatever spiritual contract you have is probably complete. And for me, forgiveness is that a person or event no longer has the ability to inspire in me something I don't want to feel. I don't want to feel resentment. I don't want to feel hurt. I don't want to feel vulnerable. I don't want to feel that I have to maintain the memory of hurt in order to keep me from being hurt again. I can trust that that hurt happened, it was horrible, and I can move forward, and I can be wiser in my dealings. But I don't have to hold on to that. And a part of that is where the rubber meets the road. When somebody comes up to you and says, you know what, that's it, I am never forgiving this person, I am going to resent them every time I think about them, I am angry and I'm aggravated. And then you sit and you watch their face turn into the person you're talking about. And you watch them exhibit. I have a friend who, she always said that her mom always had this scowl and was always bitter. And her biggest fear was that she would turn into that. And just by talking about her, so I put up a mirror. I said, okay, I want you to talk about your mom looking in this mirror. And the more she talked about her mom, then she just stopped and said, oh my God, I'm her. And I said, okay. And she didn't want to look in the mirror anymore. I said, no, it's all right. Now, talk compassionately about her. Think of maybe just one memory where it was okay, one good memory you had with her. And she started talking about that, and then she remembered another one. And by the time she finished, she looked and she started to cry. She said, I'm me. And I said, yeah, you always were. And she said, well, then that means that my mom wasn't that either. That maybe she was carrying around that pain. Maybe there was somebody she wasn't letting go of, and through that process, she was slowly becoming that person. There's a saying that what aggravates us most in others are the things that we don't want to face within ourselves. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a part of a process. If we allow it to be a part of the process, then, that's where the rubber meets the road. That moment of realization when you go, I have choice. I don't have to feel a particular way. And, what happened in Florida on Valentine's Day, it was as a mom, and thinking of all the times my sons, went off to high school, and thinking, oh my God, what would it have been like if they didn't come home? Yeah, and it's very easy to fall into reaction. All right, well, we've got to change everything. We've got to change this. We've got to change that. We don't gotta, we get to. And the first thing we do is we get to recognize our own grief. If you have someone who is in grief, is it more important to take care of the grief, or is it more important to, it's like, well, we have to do something. Because that is, and Janet, you can, let me know if I'm wrong, but that one of the reactions of grief is that I've got to do something right now. I've got to do, because you feel so out of control that you have to take control of something. Yeah. That you feel vulnerable, so you have to feel that you're in charge of something. And sometimes that reaction comes out as anger. And then we take a breath, or we wait a moment, and we go, okay, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling grief. I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling like I want to help, but I don't know how because the problem seems so much bigger than me. But often it's in that one moment that we're able to go, okay, what is my choice? What am I choosing? Because if I can't choose because I'm in grief, it doesn't make it wrong. It just means that I have to recognize that this isn't the time for me to make a decision. This is the time for me to go inside myself and help that wounded child within me feel safe again. It's time for me to go to my counsel and say, okay, guys, we're holding an emergency meeting, and you guys have all heard me talk about the counsel and my anger and my love and my highest self and my lowest self and my wounded children and my happy children, and everything, every aspect of me is sitting around this big table. And on that day, we held an emergency meeting. And, the inner children were frightened. And anger was saying, no, we get a rope. We got to do something about this. Fear was saying, we can't leave the house today. Because if it happened there, it could happen here. So my counsel kind of ran amok for a few minutes, and then it's like, all right, everybody, and I start banging the gavel, and it's like, okay, we're gonna be all right. We're gonna help. But right now, we need to take care of us. Because until we can vote together, we can't do anything out in that world. So Anger realized it's like, okay, Anger, you're going to get to express yourself, but you're going to express yourself as determination. Fear, you are not going to express yourself as fear. You're going to express yourself as wisdom, to learn from the past and figure out what the best way that we can approach this is. And my dear beloved children inside of me, both the happy and the wounded, I know this is big and this is scary, but we're going to be okay. We're going to be safe, because more people are nice and sweet, and yes, some people who are very, very broken do very, very broken things, but that's not everybody. And as long as you're here in this council, in this circle, your vote will always be heard. And if you're not feeling good, we stop the meeting and we make sure you're okay. But it's all right. So you guys are going to go sit next to Love. And Love is going to hold you in her lap and rock you and sing to you. And that's okay. Anger, I send to go play a video game. It's like, okay, Anger, you go kill some orcs and, you'll be okay. You got a new PS4. So, yes.
My dad did his best to teach us, never make a life-changing decision under an intense emotion.
Right.
And boy, do I wish I'd followed that advice.
Isn't that the best advice that we never followed was
Yeah.
the stuff we learned the most from?
You said you might live to regret it.
Yeah.
It is. It's that taking a moment to choose. Taking a moment to step out of the storm into the eye of the storm. And say, I know this storm is happening all around me, and I know I've got to step back into it. But in this moment, I can stop and I can decide how I want to react. If somebody comes up to you and you see them, maybe they look like somebody who has a shaved head and tattoos, and I live up in Boulder Creek, which is an awesome combination of hippie and redneck. And I see somebody walking up to me at the gas station, and they got the shirt with the sleeves torn off, and they look like it's like, okay, as a minority this may not end well. And they come up and say, your tires look a little bit low, can I check those for you?
Wow.
There's a gentleman named Steve, and Steve, they have the neighborhood, social media thing. I think it's called, or what is it, Next Door?
Next
Yeah.
Door.
And everybody was talking about this guy who had this truck, and the truck was in pieces, and what a jerk he was, and what a horrible person he was, and it's like, well, I don't like him, and and all this other stuff. Well, I went walking this morning, and I saw the truck because it just kind of moves around to different places and sits in pieces. And I saw a guy, and he's out sweeping around it. So I said, good morning. And he said, good morning. And he said, be careful, because someone broke one of my windows, and there's glass that's out, and I don't want your dog to get cut.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, thank you. So I introduced him. I said, my name's Ayleen, and this is Sam. And he said, my name's Steve. And I'm trying to get my truck going. And I've got a new engine that I need to put in. But, people don't like me, so I guess it was okay to bust out my window.
Oh.
And I said, well, I'm sorry that happened to you, Steve. You don't deserve that. And it was this old 1973 Chevy truck. And I said, my younger brother had a truck like that, and he called it Old Blue. And he looked at me and he grinned, and he said, well, I call mine Bella Blue. And Bella's after my dog. And so we had a nice little conversation. And I kept thinking about the horrible things that had been written about this guy. Believe me, as soon as I get home, I'm going to be writing a retraction to all of that stuff.
Good for you.
But the idea that maybe people approached him saying, it's like, you know what, this truck, it's in pieces, it's an eyesore. Yeah, he's going to react that way. Maybe nobody said good morning first to him. You know, and he's out there trying to clean everything up. I mean, even in the dirt, trying to get all the glass cleaned up so other people's dogs would be okay. Maybe those other folks don't know that about Steve. Maybe they don't even know his name. Maybe he's just that guy with the beat up truck that's an eyesore. Choice. Now, where the rubber meets the road can be a tough place, but it doesn't have to be a bad place, because we can all be there together. We can all help each other out at those times when, you know, that rubber meets the road and it's not very comfortable. Maybe we're looking in that mirror, because believe me, if I do that again, I'm taking a NyQuil or something, because it's like, ugh, no, we don't want to see that. But as we support one another and help each other at those times when we need the reality check, when we need somebody to say, hey, you know, is that really what you want to say at this moment? Or are you just scared? That's all, you're just scared. But that's okay, because we're in this together. We can figure this out. So it's a nice place. It's a comforting place. It's a real place. Because we don't have to get it perfect. Just have to try not to make the exact same mistake too many times. Like I said, it took me years to get out of day one. But I was very happy once I did. And that wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't been willing to go to that place of choice and to accept that it was my choice. Spirituality is to me, it's very much about personal responsibility. It's about trusting in the universe and realizing that the universe is trusting in you. And I take very seriously the universe trusting in me. And I try not to mess up too often. I know I do. But it's nice that I believe that there's a consciousness out there and a creator out there that says, well, that was a thing. What'd you learn? All right, let's move forward. You know, not so bad, not so bad. Just give it another try. So my friends, don't worry about getting it right. Give yourself a pity party every once in a while. And I will meet you where the rubber meets the road.
Tree that kind of looks at
An ant and a rubber tree.
something about high hopes or
Yeah, yeah.